If you're thinking about living in or even staying in Algonquin, there's something important happening here that most people don't even realize. Because while most buyers are focused on things like the kitchen, the layouts, and the school ratings, there's an invisible layer of value in Algonquin that could actually make homes here more stable and potentially more valuable over the next 10 to 20 years. And it has nothing to do with the house itself. It has to do with what the village has already taken care of behind the scenes. One of the biggest signals we've seen recently in Algonquin is this. The village has already completed its lead service line replacements nearly 20 years ahead of the state deadline. That's not something most buyers are searching for, but it's something that directly affects safety, future costs, and long-term property value. And it's a pretty strong signal of how this community is being managed. Most towns in Illinois are still figuring out how they're going to pay for these types of infrastructure upgrades, and the deadline is coming, which means rising costs, potential tax increases, possible disruptions over time. But in Algonquin, that work is already done, which means that cost is already absorbed, that risk is already removed, and that uncertainty doesn't exist here the same way it does elsewhere. What most people don't realize is this. When a town handles a major infrastructure requirement early, it's not just about safety, it's about financial stability. Most buyers and even homeowners don't think about infrastructure this way. They're focused on the finishes, the layout, the square footage. But they're not thinking about what costs are coming later. In many communities, there are still unfunded mandates sitting out there, meaning future construction, potential assessments, possible tax pressure. But in Algonquin, a big piece of that has already been handled, and that changes the risk profile of owning here. If you already own a home in Algonquin, this is actually really important, because what the village has done is stabilize part of your future financial exposure. You're less likely to face surprise infrastructure costs, major water system disruptions, last-minute compliance issues during a sale. And in today's market, those things matter more than ever. For buyers and relocators, this is one of those things they don't know to look for. But once they understand it, it becomes very important. Because when you're choosing between towns, you're not just choosing a house, you're choosing a system, a tax environment, a long-term risk profile. And Algonquin is quietly positioning itself as a lower risk, more stable option. This isn't just about water lines. This is part of a bigger pattern in Algonquin, reinvesting in older infrastructure, modernizing community assets, using new developments to support long-term sustainability. Algonquin isn't just growing, it's refining itself. What we're seeing is a shift from growth-focused community to long-term sustainability and stability. And that matters because in many suburban markets, communities go through cycles where infrastructure ages, costs rise, value stagnates. But Algonquin is working ahead of that curve. A simple way to think about this: owning in Algonquin right now is a little like buying into a building where the roof, plumbing, and electrical have already been replaced. You might not notice it immediately, but over time, it becomes one of the most valuable things about the property. Now, this actually connects to something else we're seeing right now in the Algonquin market. Because while the village is strengthening the long-term value of the area, buyers are becoming much more focused on short-term affordability. And that's creating a really interesting dynamic in how homes are selling right now. So if you're thinking about selling or trying to understand why some homes are sitting, that's exactly what we break down in the next video.